Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. And today I'm going to talk about a recent release by the Criterion Collection, which I picked up in the current Barnes & Noble Criterion half price sale, which as I'm filming this actually has a couple more days to go. So this film I'm going to talk about today, a very famous film and much anticipated, Mean Streets on 4K UHD. Looked absolutely gorgeous to me in Dolby Vision. And it is starring Harvey Keitel, Robert De Niro in this kind of breakout role. Supposedly Francis Coppola, when he saw De Niro in this film, decided to cast him in Godfather 2. But this is Scorsese's third film. He had made a very low budget personal kind of film called Who's That Knocking at My Door with Harvey Keitel. And Mean Streets, according to the supplements, I've never seen that movie, is kind of a continuation, or in Scorsese's mind at least an improvement of that film. And then he made a exploitation movie with for Roger Corman called Boxcar Bertha with Barbara Hershey and David Carradine. And Scorsese was friends with John Cassavetes, and Cassavetes is sort of a mentor, inspiration for Scorsese. And when Cassavetes saw Boxcar Bertha, he basically thought it was a piece of crap, and encouraged Scorsese to go on when he goes on making more films, to make them more personal. So this movie very much has the Cassavetes influence in it. It's kind of formless structure, and it's what appears to be improvisational dialogue. And it's about Harvey Keitel plays Charlie, and he is the nephew of the local Godfather, and who he very much desires his approval. There's a hint that he's going to be given a restaurant to run that owes this Godfather a lot of money and can't pay it. And then there's Johnny Boy, is played by De Niro, and De Niro is a guy who borrows lots of money everywhere and he doesn't pay it back. And Charlie, Harvey Keitel character Charlie, has a lifelong friendship with Johnny Boy. There's intimations that there was some family situation in the past in which Charlie feels like he owes Johnny Boy something. So we have this kind of gangster world, this being Scorsese's, not his debut film, but this really seems to be his first film, and because it does involve so many of the elements of his future career in films. So we get the gangster world embodied in Harvey Keitel and his friends. So this is a story about Charlie, Johnny Boy, and their friends, their male friends. There is one female character here. It's also a film that very explicitly confronts Scorsese's Catholicism, and it's just so Charlie is a practitioner, and we see him first in a big church, and very much he feels guilt. He feels conflicted, but Charlie does feel guilt, and so he seems to be living in a kind of hell on earth. There's no, in the sense that there's no escape, and we get a big feel of this in his friend Tony's bar, because it's always bathed in red. Very insular world. This is the world of Italian America, Little Italy, which was part of New York City, the Lower East Side, but it could be a world all unto itself. A world that what would you do if you escaped this neighborhood? I get the feeling of who would want to live here, because it is a fairly hellish environment. And then we get the improvisations that Scorsese often incorporated into his movies. And some of this is very funny. And in fact, again, in the supplements, Scorsese mentions that a couple of the routines that Charlie and Johnny Boy do are patterned, deliberately patterned after an Abbott and Costello routine. We also get rock and roll. And the way that Scorsese incorporates rock music, and of course, as the future decades show us, Scorsese had a great ear for rock and roll and what song would fit what particular scene. And he also talks, there's a 2011 interview in the supplements between Richard Linklater and Scorsese, where he says that these songs, the rock songs that he's using, are integral to the scene. They play on jukeboxes, but they're integral to the scene as far as how they play to the dramatic outcomes of these scenes. And so they're very interior. They're part of the fabric of the film. And Scorsese contrasts that to a movie like Easy Rider, which used lots of great rock songs too, but they were sort of overlaid over the images that we're seeing. So the rock and roll here is very powerful. And the one Rolling Stones song that plays behind Charlie as he's walking through Tony's bar, Tell Me You're Coming Back to Me, has been playing in my head for the last couple days. And then we get the female character that the male character cannot, their relationship always doesn't work, and it resulting in emotional explosions. So we have that here because Charlie's godfather, his uncle, does not approve of his friendship with Johnny Boy because Johnny Boy is not an honorable man, and his godfather is very well played. Cesar Nova, I think his name is, a very recognizable actor. Honorable men go with other honorable men. You do not, Johnny Boy's a dishonorable man. You have to cut that tie. But Charlie can't seem to do that. And also, Charlie is in love, or at least is having a sexual relationship with Johnny Boy's cousin, Teresa, played by Amy Robinson. And his godfather doesn't approve of that because Teresa has epilepsy, which the godfather equates to insanity. So, and the question I guess that a lot of people have, and I certainly had in 1973, before Robert De Niro was a big star, now we look back on it and, oh, look at this, is De Niro doing his toxic male character and it's funny and whatever. Why does Charlie protect Johnny Boy? Why would he risk alienating his godfather uncle to protect Johnny Boy, who is totally toxic? There is no, I guess a lot of film viewers view him as comical. We get introduced to him blowing up a mailbox on a city corner, which could have been, by the looks of the explosion, could have injured a lot of people. He fires guns off into the apartment buildings later on. I don't find much lovable about Johnny Boy. And I keep thinking, as perhaps everybody thinks, why are you protecting this guy? This guy is, he's just a total loony. Whatever punishment he gets, he appears to deserve. And that bothered me when I saw the film in 1973, because the motivation is just cut ties with this jerk. Today, I guess you see it because it's De Niro, and De Niro's so charismatic in his approach to this character, and he had a great affinity for playing these toxic male characters that so fascinate Martin Scorsese. But Scorsese says in the commentary, it's either the commentary or one of the interviews, that Charlie is doing this not for Johnny Boy, he's doing it for himself because of his Catholic guilt, in that sense that Johnny Boy is his responsibility, his penance, his cross to bear. And there is a scene in there where you get that idea that even Johnny Boy recognizes that this Charlie's concern is more for himself, to pay off his own sense of guilt. Scorsese says another interesting thing in the supplements where he goes through his own family history. His father, who had a younger brother who lived in the same apartment building and was always in debt. And it was a constant struggle to get him to pay the debts that he owed. And a year that went on for years and years. So there is that autobiographical layer as well to this aspect of the narrative that I always had trouble with. Now, how did I feel about this film in '73? I've already outlined the Johnny Boy, the toxic male. I do not find toxic male, especially to the extent that some of Scorsese's toxic men are, very interesting. I grew up in a family with a toxic male and toxic male behavior, and when I watch a movie, I don't find it nearly as entertaining as most people do. So even characters like Travis Bickle or Jake LaMotta, Rupert Pupkin, the Pesci characters, they annoy me. But I know that I know that they are the sort of the centerpiece of some of Scorsese's most famous films, and it also, there is the sense that I have that I don't find Scorsese's movies very enjoyable to watch because of that and other reasons as well. I don't particularly care for improvisation. They always seem kind of, this is, you're in the flow of the movie, and suddenly they're spouting lines that you wouldn't think anybody would write down on a piece of paper, and you think, here we get an improvisation. The female characters in Scorsese's movies, Hugh Teresa, the Sharon Stone character in Casino, they don't seem well drawn to me as female characters. And there's also the sense that because I don't enjoy him, I don't have much of an urge to go back and watch them again. But I do respect his talent. I have no argument with people that believe Scorsese is one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, which seems to be the overwhelming consensus in the fact that he's still doing it at 80 years old. Boy, you really got to respect that. And so I don't find I don't find things below the surface in a Scorsese movie that draws me back in. But the surfaces, certainly as stylistically, they're very impressive. They're, as in Mean Streets, they're kind of in your face, kind of emotional. They're full of heightened emotions. And it seems to be the point of the movie. That seems to be the point of a lot of the scenes within, individual scenes within the movie. And I get kind of weary of that. And but I love Scorsese. I do. I love the guy. And even though he's a few years older than me, we grew up watching New York television, and constantly I was like him, and I watched everything I could see, and Channel 5, Channel 9, Channel 11, and on the weekends my father would sleep in the chair. He wouldn't even know I was up, but I'd watch The Late Show Saturday night, The Late Show on CBS Channel 2. And and we like a lot of the same movies, for sure. And I love listening to Martin Scorsese talk about movies. In fact, I enjoy that more, I have to admit it. I enjoy that more than I enjoy his movies themselves. And that's with the understanding that I'm missing something. And because I like a lot of his movies the first time I see them. And again, like I say, I very seldom want to go back. And he has made some quiet films like Age of Innocence or Silence. I even like his New York, New York. I did a video on that a couple of years ago. I know that's that has the toxic male, De Niro playing another toxic male, Jimmy, I forget his last name, and his relationship with Liza Minnelli. And and she is a character. She's a normal person. You don't find a lot of normal people in Scorsese's movies, and she has talent. And I like that movie. I actually am drawn back to that one because of the songs, Liza Minnelli songs, and the Vincent Minnelli, garish look of the MGM musicals. I do like that a lot. So on this, and I'm only saying this because Scorsese is beyond, he is beyond criticism, and he really kind of deserves to be beyond criticism. I see his films as sort of a combination of John Cassavetes and Luchino Visconti. They're over, they're over the top as far as their emotions, and we get that kind of dramatic idea of the kind of Cassavetes type improvisation. So even with Cassavetes, Peter Falk said, well, we had a script, we weren't just sitting, when the camera rolled, we had to follow the script. But still there, I would think that by the sound of the dialogue, they rehearsed it and perhaps improvised along the way. So, and I haven't seen Scorsese's latest film. I admired The Irishman. In a list I did, I actually put The Irishman #1 film of it a couple years ago when I was going to the movies a lot, and of course I saw that on Netflix. And so the idea of Scorsese as talking about movies, the supplements here are terrific. You get this about 30-minute interview with Richard Linklater, and very good. There's an audio commentary. Both of these are older supplements, but there is a commentary with him, with Scorsese, and with Amy Robinson separately. There evidently was long gaps, so they cut out the long gaps. This is on the Blu-ray, and they cut out the long gaps, so I think it's about 111 minutes, so it's 77 minutes. So, but Scorsese and Amy Robinson, who played Teresa, she would go on to be a producer. She produced Chilly Scenes of Winter, and then she produced After Hours, which also came out earlier in the Criterion Collection earlier this year. And we get a conversation with Kent Wakeford, who was the cinematographer here. This is a movie before Thelma Schoonmaker, so she's not involved. She was involved in the restoration of this movie. Both her and Scorsese were involved in this 4K restoration. Now, there is a new supplement here, and this is a visual essay that lasts about 25, 30 minutes with Imogen Sarah Smith, and it's just terrific. And she's yet to do a full commentary for Criterion, but boy, this is beautifully written. It sounds a little bit like it was written where she's reading an essay, but it is so poetic and so beautiful. And she ties this film, Mean Streets, to Fellini's I Vitelloni, which I thought was interesting. They weren't gangsters. There was a little bit more normality. For instance, we don't see any of the families here. We really don't see much of the families in I Vitelloni either. But her visual essay, like all the stuff she does, is just essential if you like the film. And we also get a booklet. No, it's not a booklet, it's a fold-out, the traditional Criterion fold-out with some interesting, there's my favorite, Johnny Boy. And an essay called Rites of Passage. This is by Lucy Sart. And like all Criterion essays, they are really good. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.